Board games. We might be talking about aftercare and board games, but we're not gonna shout. When you get your game, is that the end of the day? Or is it really when you get to play the game and you get to have fun with it? We'll be chatting about this for a wee bit. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. 10 a.m. is UK time for Betty Beats and Board Game Bladder, episode 992. Oh my gosh, I'm almost at 1,000, and it's just next week. So today I have Jessica Metheringham. Thank you for joining me, Jess.
Hello.
And this topic came about in our discussion last week, and thank you for reminding me of that, where we are chatting about aftercare of customers. And you asked a few questions that hopefully we'll answer by the end. When can you feel like your responsibilities for a Kickstarter have come to an end? Is it when everything's been delivered? Or is it when everything's been played and enjoyed? Like, how long does that filter down? Like, in a year's time, if someone needs a replacement part, like, are you going to be there for them? If someone doesn't fill out the Kickstarter backer survey for 2 years, will you get it to them? Will you put in all your details again for Kickstarter because they stop your access to that survey things? And then will you say, okay, well, you filled it out, I better get my passport and all that and prove that I am who I am? And how do you help people actually get their games played? And how do you encourage and help your customers? Because we aren't just trying to, bloop, here's a game, do with it what you want. We're A, hoping that our games get played and enjoyed, and B, hoping that this becomes an ongoing thing and we become more popular maybe, and it becomes more of business.
There's a whole load of questions all in that what is aftercare section, isn't there? And I'm like, I've forgotten the first few questions that you asked because it's such a long list. So yeah.
We will hopefully get to that in the course of the thing. But before we get started, we will have our regularly scheduled, intermissions. But is there anything you want to say right off the bat about aftercare? I mean, how would we define it? For me, it's kind of like, okay, someone's got their thing. And actually, I mean, you could argue that aftercare is even like, oh, my thing didn't arrive. Can you send it to me? I mean, when is it after? After what? Is it after they paid for it? Is it after the delivery? Is it after they've started to... how would you define aftercare?
There are so many different factors in there. So I think that one of the important things has to do with whether the person's got it. So, you as when you're shipping it, you go down to the post office, you hand the parcel over, but then of course, that parcel actually has to get to the next person. There's only been one parcel that I've had sent back from the Labyrinth lot, which admittedly we thought at the post office looked a little bit dodgy, and it's been sent back and it says, that hasn't worked. It's one with a foreign address, which apparently is not quite 100% right or something, and so I have to talk to the the backer and say, okay, this didn't work, do you want me to send it somewhere else? What are the options? So there's the whole shipping thing, but then there's also you want them to play it and enjoy it, but you can't control that. I also want them to put something out about that they've enjoyed it. I want them to write on Board Game Geek. I want them to give me a comment, whether it's good or bad. I mean, clearly I like the good comments more than the bad comments, but the bad ones can be helpful. So there's a bit where aftercare goes both ways. When you're backing something, it's slightly more than just buying it in a shop. It's that that the creators... it's not that the backer has a responsibility or a duty or anything to provide feedback, but we as creators, we really like it when you do.
Yeah, it's definitely like the whole notion of aftercare. I'm not going to deny that there is a little bit of a self-serving aspect to it. I mean, if I say to people, hey, you've had a good time now. Hopefully you'll rate it, well on Board Game Geek. And hey, would you even... I mean, the fact that one of my games got nominated for a Golden Geek Award was
Hey.
something that I never expected to happen. And it makes me think, oh, you know what? Maybe I can do something with that. Maybe I can plan around that, because some of these awards, yes, they are popularity contests, but you need to kind of know how to play that game. I mean, for UK Games Expo, if I release a game either just at UK Games Expo and then enter it the next year, or just after UK Games Expo and enter it the next year, then in theory, more people will have had time to play it and be like, oh, wow, I really like this game. But then it's also how many fans do you have that you can activate and say, hey, please come and vote for this game. It's similar with the Golden Geek. It is just a bunch of people voting. But the fact that one of my games got nominated probably goes to show how few votes you actually need to get something up there. It's not like you need thousands and thousands of votes. If you have like a small core that are like, hey, this is the thing. And then obviously to be the number one, like despite my best efforts, and it, like that's a little bit more.
See, this makes me think that perhaps I should have, focused on that and said to my backers, oh, can you nominate me for this thing? I think actually, we were probably slightly too late for this year.
But I would say that that's not really what we're talking about here. For me, that's like self-serve. That's like making requests of people after the fact. For me, aftercare, it has to be based on the backers. So it's like, how can we care for them? Sure, there might be, a benefit for us down the line if they choose to do that, but that should not be the priority of the aftercare. Like, I mean, the aftercare has to be, okay, how can we make sure that their experience is the best possible thing it can be, even after they've got their game? And maybe if we say, okay, after what, maybe that's the point where we say this is aftercare. So making sure they got their game, resending a package if it has to be resent, that's care. And making sure they've played the game afterwards, that's aftercare.
There's a difference, I think, between whether we're acting as a retailer, essentially, because Kickstarter, we're sending out the games ourselves, versus the designer. Because we've got different obligations to somebody who we're physically sending a game out to people who buy it in a shop and just go, oh, actually, I'd like to ask you about this. But supposing that people do reach out and say, oh, this thing, this character in your game, or this, mechanic, or this move in your game, can I ask you about that? That's really nice. I like that.
But I think or maybe also behooves us to kind of reach out and make these things available. So let's say that our definition of aftercare for this episode is after people have received or bought their games, after the games are already in their possession, how can we care for them? And that's something that we'll be tackling in just a wee bit. But first of all, recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. What are some of the things that you've been up to in the past couple of weeks, and what is the last game you played, Jess?
Ooh, the last published game or the last thing? Because I think, one of the big achievements I have recently was that I had a game about mazes, which was just not going anywhere because it was really difficult to playtest virtually. Because it's a game about laying cards on top of each other to create a maze. And while it's possible to do that in Tabletop Simulator, it was just getting ridiculously messy and it didn't work. But I had a weekend recently where I saw some other people, some friends, including one very helpful 7-year-old boy who loves games. So he and I play tested these mazes games several times, and it was actually incredibly helpful. And I went from something which was a will this work to a not quite a completely different design, but I had a design where you could overlay a small bit of the card, or you could you just have a row or whatever, to something where it was the whole quarters, and you could do the whole lot, and it was like, right, you know,
I
you've got to
think
do
that
that.
mazes are just inherently fun. I think this
Mm.
is a nice thing to work around. And, you know, I was chatting to Andrew Beardsley yesterday, who made Zombie Princess and the Enchanted Maze. And I think that, you know, managing to construct it, it feels like you're empowered, you're making something, but it's not a super fiddly thing to make, like lots of engine building games where this says,
Yeah.
oh, turn this into that, turn B into C, turn C into A, and then you repeat the combo, and suddenly it's like, haha, I get to do lots of stuff. It's more of a visually immediate thing. You just get to see this is all flowing, and I'm managing to maybe create a path for myself or block you. Either way, it's good fun.
Blocking other people is also fun, you know, and you know, there's this balance in those sort of games. You know, you can tell when they are working. You know, so with a much more complicated game, you know, you're looking at it and you're like, ooh, this bit works, that bit works, and it's quite difficult to tell, you know, sometimes which bits are and aren't. You know, with Labyrinth, you know, we actually had to take it apart a couple of times and put it back together before we found something that really worked. But with a really simple game, then, you know, to a certain extent, you can say, oh, that works or it doesn't. You know, with mazes, you know, with this one anyway, it was like, okay, that version just doesn't work. You know, there wasn't anything really to be salvaged out of it. I mean, yeah, you know, the theme and the idea, but then it was, okay, right, let's try a different version. Okay, this version does work. You know, and I had to go through, you know, 4 or 5 different versions with different ideas before I found something that worked, because it is a much more straightforward, simple idea, rather than something like Labyrinth, which is, you know, a more complicated game.
Now, we've got UK Games Expo coming up, and how is that preparation going for you? I think this is the last time that we're going to have a proper, relatively relaxed chat. Next time we chat, I think there's going to be 4 of us on screen, and you'll have about 20 minutes to yourself, which will be a bit of a tighter schedule. We'll see how that works. But how is your preparation going?
So, fairly well. We have all the games. We have the various stuff like tablecloths. We have the hoodies. I haven't sent off for a couple more pull-up banners. You know, we have one that's, you know, we have a pull-up banner that we've used quite a lot, and it's really getting to its last legs, and it also shows a much earlier version of the game. So I'm like, yeah, you know, I'll replace that. So, you know, we've got a few things. You know, we've hired a van, which is good. You know, we've got the hotels. So we're feeling fairly confident.
Nice.
It's sort of perhaps 75 to 90%, you know, prepared. So, which is actually really good this far out.
I mean, I have to admit, I'm feeling quite stressed about it. I had 5 games that I sent to the printer, which were the ones for my last 2 outstanding Kickstarters, and I was hoping to receive them maybe 2 weeks ago, but unfortunately there's been problems at the printer, and are they going to come this week? I don't know, but you know, they should come in time for UK Games Expo anyway. We just sent off 3 more games that are going to 4 more games actually that are going to be in boxes to the printer. So Categorical, Original, which is what I'm now calling the original typeface. I've decided that I'm not going
original, Categorical. Nice.
And then we will also have a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after mixed noises in tuck boxes, because even though I don't think it's as good as a game about cute comical creatures and trying to identify them after mixed noises, some people like it, so I figured I should print some. And we've also got a game about seriously surreal creatures and trying to identify them after mixed noises. But my main problem is that I'm struggling to work out the logistics of how to get stuff up. I contacted Spiral Galaxy on the Sunday, I want to say, and I just got a reply from them early this morning to say, hey, unfortunately, we're overbooked, and it's getting busier and busier every year. We're trying to work out how we can manage that, but essentially we've stopped taking stuff for this year. but here's a couple of things that may be able to help you or might not. I don't know. And they did say that for future years, that it might be just people who they are doing fulfillment for, that they take to UK Games Expo because it's becoming such an in-demand service, if you know what I mean. But hopefully I will be able to work out something with that, because unless I work out someone else to do my logistics, I'm not going to be able to keep doing UK Games Expo, which would feel a bit of a shame. I mean, even though I'll be away, I would really like someone to. What else? Since yesterday, I did go out. I did some stuff in the house, like try to oversee the finalizing of the files, and actually let me show off. Categorical. So this is what the front of the box might look like. And the front is obviously on the right, and the back is on the left, and there is there's no sides. There is a top and bottom, but and then the actual cards, I've got these rule cards interspersed. So the first card says, "Do not shuffle. Read these, and it'll teach you how to play the game." Sets out.
Oh, and you've got 12 rule cards. That's probably a good idea, actually.
6 rule cards. It's 12 sides.
12 sides, yeah.
And then you've got 5 cards to lay out in that little thing, and it says, "Hey, here's what you're about to do. Flip a card and then shout. And hey, who won? Do the flip, cover, clap." And then you've got the cards that you flip, cover, clap, and then it says, "Keep going. Remember, flip, cover, clap." So there's a reminder card for each team. And then it goes on and it says, "Well, now you just keep going until the end of the deck. And here's how you score a point." And then I did have one in the middle, but didn't quite have space for it, annoyingly, just to say, "Hey, I've not forgotten about you." Honestly, that was the main use of the one in the middle. But and then I had some unnecessary information where I said, "Hey, here's some random information about the deck," where I went into the numbers and stuff. But then at the end, it's like, "Hey, the game's over. And for your next game, do places rather than food. And if you want, there are lots of other games you can play with this deck." And that's hopefully going. I'm not going to be selling this at UK Games Expo, I've decided. I will be selling the original deck, and this will be available to demonstrate. It will be available for people to pick up. But, I mean, it's been 2 years beyond what I originally said, so it feels like it would be a bit shitty to kind of start selling it. But
does it feel like it's closure to a certain extent?
It'll feel like it's closure once it's all been sent.
Good.
Once it's all been posted, and I'm like, okay, I'm 99% sure that, or more, that any given one of these is going to arrive. So there might be 2 that haven't arrived, but once that's all done, once I've done the survey and sent out everything, then that will be closure to my mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm struggling with the logistics, as I mentioned. Yesterday just ended up napping excessively. I did have a bath, which was quite nice. I did go to a fish and chip shop where they had weird stuff. They had mushy peas, deep fried and battered. And they also had potato mash with sausages, apparently, although the amount of sausage was really low, and spicy, apparently, again, although the amount of spice was really low. It was almost like it had been lightly peppered, like you might hear. But they had that, and you could buy, and so I bought some of those bites. So that was a really nice thing. I feel like beyond my own personal stuff, there's also a couple of things I'd like to talk about in the general gaming stuff. So firstly, Ticket to Ride Berlin. Have you seen this? Have you read the rules?
I have not read the rules. I have not seen it either, no.
So Ticket to Ride Berlin it's only got one scoring system, as opposed to the previous, I believe, 3 city maps. So New York, it's like, oh, you just get a bonus point from these places. London, it's okay, set collection, be in one district.
Yep.
And Amsterdam, it's like, go to the end and get these different cards and build sets. Here, there's none of that. It's just get your, tickets, or fail, and also you get points for putting stuff down. But they've got this new thing that's
So hang on, how does that differ from the original? Say you look at, the bigger Ticket to Ride.
Well, I'm
the
about to
original
tell
Ticket to
you.
Ride. Ah, excellent. Carry on. I'll stop interrupting.
Well, if you look at the map, on the outside, you've got these so-called underground spaces, and everyone starts with two types of things. If I zoom in, you can see that you not only have 11 street cards, but you also have 5 subway cards. And it's like you've got two different economies, not just your train, not just your main things, but also a secondary thing. And so your secondary thing is going to go on the outside of the board, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And your main thing is going to go on the middle of the board. So then you're thinking, okay, like I don't know how that's going to change the game, but it feels interesting and it feels like it ties into the core concept of, hey, this is what we're going to do. And for the bits on the outside, you still spend that number. So here you'd spend 3 black. There you'd also spend 3 black and 2 black and whatever. Wait a minute. Don't know what went wrong there. I do apologize.
Never
But
mind.
basically, this is another way for you to link up your stuff, and you're limited to 5 of them. So I'm quite curious to see how that goes, and I think that they're going to keep coming up with new cities. I mean, I expect they're going to. It's interesting they don't do the capitals. I mean, Washington D.C. Who cares about that? Let's go to the big city, the Big Apple, New York. And it's my prediction that the next few things might include Los Angeles, Tokyo, Paris, and I feel like another one might be Sydney, just to go on the Southern Hemisphere. That's my prediction. I think it's going to be one of these four for the next one. But what do you think? Are you a fan of the Ticket to Ride city maps?
So I love Ticket to Ride. Ticket to Ride, the original, and Ticket to Ride Europe, and all of the big ones. I have played Ticket to Ride London, but none of the others. So I don't know if I'm a fan, but I suspect I would be, because I like that sort of thing. I think they're probably looking for cities which are unusual in some way. So, Berlin having that ring of underground cars, that makes it interesting. I'm trying to think of what other, things there.
I mean, I think it's also, I feel like you could almost do something about pretty much any city, but it's about having a city where people have heard of it and it's resonant in some way outside of that country even.
Yeah, people have heard of it. There's something, that you think, oh yes, of course it's that. It's, it's Amsterdam. Oh yes, I remember, I know that there are there are lots of bikes there. Maybe it'll be Venice. They haven't done a Venice one, have they?
No. And
Venice
then
would be
Alan said
interesting for the
Berlin
number
has
of boats.
It could be. Berlin has an unusual map configuration which creates fierce competition to connect the sides of the map. People will need to use their street cards and subway cards to efficiently maximize their network. I mean, the one thing that I loved about New York when it first came out and I first got to play it at a sort of preview event was that to me, it feels like it takes that Ticket to Ride and it distills that into a 15-minute knife fight. So whereas the normal Ticket to Ride, it's like, okay, we're moving around and we're skirmishing and we're kind of maybe getting into each other's ways. I don't know, maybe not. With like New York, you are getting in each other's way. You have to really count every one of your trains because you've only got you've only got 11 of them. And so you will really have to think, okay, how do I connect these two things? What's my possibilities? And so it feels like it's just a little bit tighter. You have to do a little bit more work in the calculation, and that appeals to me. And then you get to finish it and then play it again potentially. I played this like 3 times in a sitting. Not this one. Ticket to Ride New York I've played 3 times in a sitting. Ticket to Ride London I think I've played like twice in a sitting. But I couldn't imagine being like, frankly, by the end of a normal Ticket to Ride, I feel like,
it's not quite a standard game length because there is no standard game length, But normal Ticket to Ride, that's definitely not expected that you'll play it more than once. But I do like these small games, where it's, so some of them even say, best out of 3. You look at something like Lost Cities, the card game Lost Cities, then that's very much that's presented as, do the best out of 3, because it is a 10 to 15 minute game. So I do enjoy something that's, that's quick like that. So yeah, I think I will definitely enjoy this.
I mean, the interesting thing about Ticket to Ride is that Ticket to Ride London, I once had a fairly long game of with people who were maybe not. I mean, they wanted to play a game, don't get me wrong. I'm never going to force anyone to play a game if they don't want to play it. But they were maybe not in the best state of mind to understand rules. And whilst they were wanting to play a game, they were also wanting to chat and do other things and have like a little bit of a smoking break in between. And, like with all of this, it turned into a 40-minute game. And at the end, I was like, yeah, do we want to play? No, we feel like we're done. Let's play something like maybe even faster now.
Quirkle or something. Quirkle is good for those circumstances.
But
it's that
like
kind of pub game.
Like, if we'd started with Ticket to Ride USA or Europe, I think that would have taken like hours and we might not have finished it before the end of the evening. So I think actually for people, because when you play the games, so many of us hobbyist gamers are saying, we'll play the game and then we will just play the game. And if it's your turn, you should be not talking and just doing your thing. Because if you're conversing with someone when it's your turn, no, that's not okay. But then there's this other mindset of, hey, I'm going to chat along. And whilst I can adapt, I do prefer the former approach, I'm going to admit, where I would rather when it's someone's turn, then they take their turn. And if we're going to chat, then, at least play by gut. That's my personal feeling. But not everyone's like that. And so for those people, whether it's a short game or whether it turns it into an approachable length, I think that these Ticket to Ride City maps are the thing that is going to help it become, fingers crossed, a new monopoly.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Because people often don't want to play board games because they think they're going to take, forever. But you're absolutely right that it's the mindset of the person playing it that makes a difference. People who are accustomed to playing a quick card game, and they're like, okay, we're gonna play some Snap, we're gonna play, some rounds of something, we're gonna play some, some Go Fish or some Old Maid or something. They're accustomed to it taking 10 minutes, and they actually, they want to lengthen it out to 20 minutes by chatting and hanging around and, having conversations, and that's just a different audience. So I think having different games for different audiences works really well, especially something like this that feels like it's quite versatile, because it feels like a gaming group can look at this and be like, okay, this is a quick game to get us started, 20 minutes, absolutely done. Whereas,
frankly, you could play like free games of the city maps and then play as you're starting off and then play one game of Ticket to Ride UK if you're like a Ticket to Ride aficionado. I don't know.
You can have all the tickets to ride. So many of them.
I mean, I feel like all the country maps and continent maps are probably too much, but you could definitely play all the city maps in one evening.
Yeah. No, that would be cool. Oh, I think someone should do that. It'll be a bit like, when people sit down to watch a Lord of the Rings marathon. You're like, okay, I'm going to play through all of the Ticket to Rides. Start with the city, or maybe you'd start with the city, then do a couple of the larger ones, then go back to another city, or maybe you'd go across the world in a, where are you, in terms of, latitude? No, longitude.
Yeah. Ooh. I mean, what if you kind of, you could make a I think you would want to keep them separate, but I was almost thinking, what if, and this is probably a terrible idea, what if you had all the Ticket to Ride boards sort of set up in different areas, and when it's your turn, you get to take a turn on any one of the maps, if that makes sense.
So a bit like those Sudokus where you've got 5 Sudokus put together.
Like, you are basically, on your turn, you're deciding, okay, have I just given up on this game? Am I not going to bother playing it anymore? Am I going to now start focusing on Asia? Am I thinking like I could still score some points in Asia, and maybe your final score is like the sum total of everything combined? I don't know. It could be a thing.
Okay. I think maybe that would require its own separate convention. Forget
Like, it feels like you would need a lot of tables as well. But
and
yeah,
different people willing to do different things. But yes, let's do a ticket for it. Excellent. Genius is what it is, actually.
I wanted to also talk about, do you think it's okay to mention the Kickstarter in question? Because it is public information.
Yeah.
So for Heck and Hounds, designed by Matty Schrader, it's not on the stream. So
There
it
it is.
started going out, and it's like, hey, please get what it's all going to happen, but also a carton of advance copies are on their way to the designer for use at Geekway. And so specifically 6 copies are going to be in the Play to Win event. And this is a thing. So someone replied to this saying, I think it's extremely tacky. We've not got our copies yet. Do your giveaways after you fulfill the orders. To which Sapphire City clarified, we're not selling any copies. I'm sorry you disapprove of us expediting the designer to showcase her game. Because it is about supporting the designer. And, there's a bit of back and forth, and someone at the end just says, this is totally fine, get over it. And this whole FOMO, I get it, because after a while, if I hear, hey, this game arrived here and I could have actually gotten it earlier by just going this alternate route, then that doesn't feel ideal. But what this is kind of getting into our whole topic of, it's kind of care of the backers. At what point do you think it's okay to give away stuff? I mean, what's your stance on this? Because I've got a definite opinion on this, but I want to hear your opinion first.
So I'm slightly biased because
you've done Kickstarters.
I've done Kickstarters before, but also, I have a personal opinion and I have a professional opinion, I suppose.
Okay, tell me.
And my personal opinion is that I personally do not back a Kickstarter so I can get the game first. Time is just not a factor in it. I mean, yes, I'd like it to be about the same time as everybody else gets it, give or take 3 months or so. But I back the game because I'd quite like to back it at the beginning, because I like the concept, but also because I'm often backing games which don't go to retail, which won't go to retail, because they're too small, and that's the sort of thing I like to back. So on a certain personal level, that complaint, somebody else is getting, let's imagine it is someone is getting to buy a copy first, which isn't the case in this scenario. But if somebody else is getting to buy a copy first, then personally, my response is, so? I mean, as long as it's not a year before I get mine, then yeah, that's not an issue. But on a professional, standing, then I understand that other people do care about time. Supposing that somebody was going to go and sell games somewhere before other people got to, take theirs away, then I think that would be, that wouldn't be great. Don't sell copies to other people before the backers have at least had the chance to get theirs. Now, it might be that something goes wrong, so for example, I saw, so I've sent, some off to a fulfillment center. There was actually a little bit of a query, over the last couple of weeks about whether the games had gone out to Canadian backers. I'm actually waiting to hear back from the fulfillment center about precisely who they have sent them to, because, you know, there's a bit of a back and forth because they were supposed to have more copies left over than they have, and something has gone slightly wrong there with the various different spreadsheets. It's all going to be fine, but, you know, so
I mean,
there
it'll be
are
annoying
things.
if you end up having to send like 6 extra copies over because you are slightly under.
Well, I haven't sent any to Canadian backers. Basically, it worked out that if Canadian backers had backed 2 copies, then it was considerably cheaper for me to send them from here than from the US, which doesn't make any sense, but for somehow it was. So I had told the US fulfillment center not to send them, and it turns out that, and it seems that they did, but they're not entirely sure because they can't give me the list of the whole thing because someone's on leave or something. And, you know, this happens. You know, when you've got multiple people
And this
there,
kind
it
of stuff
happens.
adds time, and it's annoying,
Yeah.
but stuff happens.
Yeah, it adds time. You know, so if, for example, there are, you know, so if there's like 20 people, or even if it's 10% of a Kickstarter who, you know, for some logistical mishap, you know, they haven't got their games quite in time before they go on sale. That's okay, I think, as long as it was a logistical mishap and it wasn't, oh, you know, we always planned it. So I think there is something, you know, and it's, you know, and it's very frustrating for those people, but it's not a planned thing. You know, there's a difference between a mistake and a plan. But I don't think that it's okay for somebody to, you know, yeah. So selling stuff, you know, before backers have got it, now that doesn't seem great. But taking a few copies to demo somewhere, obviously, that's what people are going to do, and that seems perfectly
Yeah, I
fine.
mean,
Because why
but
would
it's
you
also the
not?
giveaway that they had an issue with. I mean, it
Yeah.
is about the opportunity. I mean, Mike says, I would like to get it before it hits retail, but I'm happy for the people showing it off at cons and shows. It's fine. And I think this is the key thing. Like, if you've got a retail release, let's be honest, I mean, there are very few games. I mean, there's probably like less than 10 in the world for which the release date actually matters. There are some games, like basically all of them are deck construction games, probably, where people are like, okay, we are going to go to the pre-release event, and the shops actually plan an event around it, and then people go and they buy the stuff, and then, you know, that really matters. But those people aren't going to do Kickstarters anyway. I mean, if you are, what the heck are you doing? You're blooming deck construction stuff. And hello, Luna, it's lovely to see you. Happy Wednesday to you too. But, and for my game, for your game, for Gloomhaven, frankly, for, you know, I can't think of what big, for like Exploding Kittens, like the biggest game coming up. And Runa says, hi, Jess, I know this other person. But yeah, for all of these games, no one's going to kick up a stink in terms of retailers getting it a couple of months later, potentially. But if I don't sell something at this UK Games Expo, it is kind of a big decision to say, okay, I'm going to sell it in 1 year's time. And that is a big delay. I mean, 2 months, 3 months, it's not going to be that much of a difference to me, but hopefully people understand at a convention. Now, I do agree with that. It sort of depends on, and yes, thank you very
I need
much
to stretch
for
this one.
the
This arm is very dodgy at the moment because so yesterday I went and had a boxing lesson.
I enjoyed the interruptions, by the way. This is all about the interruptions. Thank you very much for being here and interrupting us. But yes, what I'm saying is that at a show, it does also depend what the run up to that has been. If you are within schedule and what your promises were at the start of the campaign, I think I need to be more forthcoming with this, because then hopefully there won't be any disappointments. And in future Kickstarter campaigns, I am going to say, no matter what, this will be on sale at UK Games Expo. If I can do it, of course, you'll be able to pick up your thing. Because the worst scenario is when you see other people getting it, and you're even at the show, and you say, "Hey, could I get my copy because I backed it?" and they say, "No, sorry, the copies that we brought
Yeah.
over here are for us to make profits on." And I get that, I understand that from a financial point of view, but it feels really shitty as a backer. And it happened to me once where it was like, "Hey, I'm right here at Spiel. I would love to get this game, but I'm not able to get it." And then I had to wait until February. And that was like November, December, January, February. That was 4 months.
I mean, that feels like badly managed. That's really badly managed logistically. I mean, that could theoretically happen to me, I suppose. Because we have copies for the EU where we've driven them down to the fulfillment center, which is about 45 minutes drive from here. So we drove all the copies for backers in the European Union down. They are sitting in the fulfillment center. I've pressed the button. They might have started to be posted out. I'm not entirely sure. I need to go and check the spreadsheet, check their thing there. But, supposing that they haven't, and supposing there's a bit of a delay, they might sit there for another couple of weeks. It's possible, and then someone from one of the European Union countries who has backed my game could come to Birmingham to Expo and be like, "Hey, I'm on holiday here. Can I pick it up?" And I'd be like, your copy, you've got an earmarked copy. I've paid for the shipping, etc. And, so it can, there are small possibilities like that.
But in
it's
your
how you
case, it's
deal with
going
it.
to hopefully arrive with them within a month anyway.
It would definitely arrive within a month anyway, but also it's like, there are actually only a very small number of people, and I've been in email contact, but I could see how a big corporation could lose control of its logistics, and it shouldn't do that. It shouldn't lose control of its logistics there. So yeah.
But stuff does happen. I mean, we are all humans, and even if it's a company with 100 humans, sometimes someone messes up, and then there's not other people to pick up the slack as much as we would like to believe. But then we get into giveaways, and how do people feel about that? I'd actually like to ask everyone watching, how do you feel about there being a giveaway at a convention, like a play to win type thing? Or how do you feel about review copies? Because I am going to give review copies away. Like if Shut Up and Sit Down were to come over and say, "Hey, we would like to have a copy of Categorical," I'm going to say, "Yes, here it is," but I'm not going to say, "Oh, no, I can't give it." Like, that's a massive marketing opportunity. UK Games Expo, to be honest, that's the main reason I go there, for the marketing. And no, actually, that's not entirely true. The main reason I go there is because I enjoy it, because I get something out of it. But from a professional point of view, the main reason I go there is for the marketing. Because, I don't make a profit at the actual thing. And sure, a lot of that expense is spent on stuff I really enjoy, like a nice meal at Las Iguanas. And I need to book that today. Book Las Iguanas. But
put it on the list.
It's literally written down on the paper now. Okay, but like, I am going to give away review copies, and when people win the 2 p.m. event, I might give away like 3 copies to the people who win the 2 p.m. event, because that 2 p.m. event is meant to be like a really big deal. And if someone, because I'm doing my own fulfillment, I can say, "Yes, if you are here, then I will give it to you." So at least people don't have that sadness of, "Oh, I could have gotten it there." But how does that interrelate? I mean, it just feels to, is there anything much more, or should we move on to our actual topic?
Feels like that's a question of scale. I think there's only one thing to say there, and to me, it feels like a question of scale. And they were talking about 6 copies there, and 6 copies. Say it was hundreds of copies. That feels quite different to having 6 copies, and you're like, these are copies which are going to be the demo copies, and then somebody gets to take them home. I mean, why would they not get to take them home? Because otherwise, you've then got these 6 demo copies hanging around. Yeah, it feels like that's like it's a missed opportunity. And so I am personally, this is something where I completely understand what the organisation and the designers and the publishers are doing.
Yeah, and I think that they responded brilliantly. And yeah, I'm sorry to Matty, frankly. And I do want to show this tweet from Senfing Glim, renowned designer of like more than 50 games, who says, "I know that the paying customers need to get their games. You know who makes more paying customers though? Me. When I can show the games, I co-design on stream. I teach people at conventions, etc. I'm probably the game's best salesperson when you think about it," which I do agree with. And it's, I mean, people who are backing this, it's like, yeah, a lot of bigger companies, it is kind of a pre-order, you could argue, but I think that for so many people, and I am going to have to take major steps in future things to manage these expectations. And I don't know if I shared with you, like told you about the private thing that I'm not going to share publicly, of me getting, something that happened about 9 days ago, let's say. But like, anyway, Black Sheep says, review copy definitely need to be handed out. Not sure about giveaways. It depends on the timeline from other copies getting shipped to the backers. That's a fair point. But like, if it's like, oh, well, I'm giving it to Shut Up and Sit Down, obviously, the Dice Tower folk probably won't be there. Like, there's, I mean, the no pun included folk won't be there. But like, do I give it to, Board Games for Life? Yeah, I love them. I think that this is a brilliant Danish channel, and I want them to have all of my games that they are comfortable reviewing. I don't want them to take everything because I understand that all the games are on obligation. But last year I told them I don't care if it's a bad review, well, a negative review or a positive review. Because I love the fact that they talk about the game, then they do a quick playthrough and they share their opinion. It feels like a really proper look into the game, as opposed to a lot of stuff which is lightweight fluff, frankly. And even when they've said, oh, I wish this was different, like that, it speaks to me. And so part of those review copies are because I like the people. Part of them are because I gain something from the channel. Part of them, frankly, the only ones which is like, yeah, this is definitely going to result in sales. How many of those channels are there? I would posit that there's not more than 4 in the world where you can say, yeah, this is a board game reviewer. Yeah, Rado, if Rado reviews a game, you will probably get like a bunch of sales the next couple of weeks. If Shut and Sit Down, similarly, but how many of them are there? Not many.
That's a good point, and I'd just like to share, this, to sort of close up those things, that it depends on your audience, because we got reviewed last week by the Washington Post. Their book reading, newsletter. They have a book club newsletter which goes out every Friday. Because so Library Labyrinth is of course about books and libraries.
And that's amazing, but of course that's reaching outside the board game reviewer.
That's reaching outside. We've had 30 orders off the back of that, and
that's
that
awesome.
is like, that's really good. So, and some of those may get their games slightly before some other people. I mean, now admittedly there are still a lot of the backers for Library Labyrinth we're still chasing for postage, because of course I chased the people who were in the US and Canada first, because a separate palette of games was going there, then the people to the European Union, and now I'm chasing up all of the people in the UK. So it is a little bit of, maybe if I'd chased a little bit earlier, then I could have sent out a few more games earlier.
I mean, if they've not filled out their survey, they probably don't care if it's like a month or 2 later. That's my quote.
Very true.
I agree. Great work. Well done on getting that out there. And I think that by reaching outside of our frankly tiny little bubble, we can get more customers. But
absolutely.
I do want to spend a little bit of time actually, because I don't want to talk much more than an hour. I assume it's the same for you. So let's talk about why Aftercare is a brilliant thing. It's a little thing which is brilliant. Aftercare. Why is it brilliant? Let's go back and forth and give reasons until we run out.
It makes people happy. It makes the customers happy. They've got a problem, you solve it, they are happy people, and the world should have more happy people in it.
No,
12-hour streams. No.
no, I am not doing any 12-hour streams. No time soon. The longest you'll get is next week on Thursday, where it will be about 7-hour streams. But that's a good amount of time that I can actually focus on. I've decided these 24, 25-hour, 26, I can do them, but I just fall asleep and it's like not great.
I couldn't do them.
7.
No.
7 is the best number. That's come tune in next Thursday for episode 1000. And yeah, actually, can I give a very quick shout out to all the amazing people that are going to be there? It will be Rita Model, Kirsten Lunda, Ryan Estrada, Glenn Ford, Jess Metheringham, Alan Paul, Joe Kelly, Kenichugu Ogbago, KC, Chris and Suzanne Zinsley, Tori Brown, Kathleen Mercury, Natalia Pazar, hopefully Kristen and Andy Looney, they have to confirm, Ellie Dix, Anya Coombs, Eric Lang, Eric Royce, Amabel Holland, and Elizabeth Hargrave. But yes, that is going to be next week. So, but yes,
Yeah.
Aftercare is brilliant. Let's talk about that now. So, Aftercare, why is it brilliant? And feel free to chime in with reasons why Aftercare is brilliant in the comments. Because it makes people happy. What I would also say is because it's environmentally conscious, because if you play a game just once and then toss it away, or if you've got stuff that you just use and then you don't even use ever, that's really wasteful. But having less material stuff and playing with it more, that's a brilliant thing. So Aftercare can lead you to a deeper connection with your stuff and replaying it more, which is good for the environment.
Reusing rather than throwing it away or recycling it. I think Aftercare is brilliant because it keeps people looking at games, so it leads them to go, to say, oh, I like this game, in this game, I had some, suggestions, or I had some, I felt like I was involved in the project right up until it finished, and then afterwards a little bit. That means that I'm more likely to look at other Kickstarters. I'm more likely to back other things. I'm more likely to, to sort of send feelers out there into the community. And there are some people who are really in it and back everything. And then there are some people who are like, oh, I'm just exploring this thing. Let's see about games. So I think it brings those people in and makes our community as a whole richer and bigger and lovelier.
Yeah, and from a more micro level, I think that most games these days are actually good enough that you feel a deeper connection as you play with them more. You feel like even, I mean, sure, if you play Crazy Eights, then maybe it's so much more luck than skill, or if you play like whatever, at a certain point I'll be like, oh well, I've basically plumbed the depths of this. But most games you'll be like, hey, I'm starting to become familiar, I'm learning a bit more. Oh wow, now I've found, you still get those moments of surprise, and then you start building up memories with the family around you. You say, oh, do you remember that time when the four of us played gin rummy together on that table? Oh, do you remember when we played it on that table? And then it connects us and it brings about deeper bonds through this touchstone. And I think there's something lovely about replaying games that can be brought about by the Aftercare compared to just constantly moving on to the next things.
Yeah. From a business and financial point of view, I think it, something which boosts your reputation and makes people think that you are a responsible person, making these games and taking care of people, that's always going to be good for sales.
Yeah, I feel like I've basically run out of things, but showing your responsibility is a good one. Do you have anything else that you'd like to talk about Aftercare?
I think it depends on the type of Aftercare, because for some, so when you're doing a Kickstarter, there are a lot of people who really do want to feel like part of a community. So I've got comments on my Kickstarter for Library Labyrinth, and which say, yeah, this is great. I've really felt like I've been, brought on the journey. There are a few people who, I mean, there have been a few queries about things, and people changing their addresses at the last minute, and me not having said, oh no, actually, I'm keeping the addresses open because I want UK people to be able to tell me what their address is, but I don't want people outside of the UK to, and there are some, things where I've had to sort of, go back and forth to people and say, can you fill this out? Can you whatever? Plus, because I've used GameFound as a pledge manager, sometimes the address on sometimes the address given to GameFound is different to the address on the Kickstarter survey. So it's it's emailing those people, making sure it's the right address, etc. And that people have felt grateful for that care. People have felt grateful, and that's that's not quite aftercare because it's the shipping bit of it, but it's that feeling like part of a community. And I think when you're talking about Kickstarter backers, there's something different to people who buy it in a shop, because the people who are Kickstarter backers, they've been there from the beginning and they've seen a lot of the artwork develop. I mean, possibly not for larger companies where it's all done, but where it's something where, you're still developing stuff, then I think there's real input in there, and people like having that input and they want to be there till the end.
Yeah. I've been kind of pondering about what Aftercare can entail, and I think that I'm going to take down the banner and I'm going to just catch up with the comments slightly. So, hello, Matt, who says, hi both, my copy, presumably of Labyrinth, arrived safe and sound, but it's not opened yet. I will be recording the unboxing.
Ooh.
And Runa says, we're trying to get her to stream longer, so 8 is better. It is even. It's 2 times 2 times 2. Ain't that magic? Black Sheep says, why is 8 afraid of 7? And Runa says, well, I never saw 8 as afraid of 7. I am not blessed with seeing the emotions of cut numbers. And yeah, there was a bit of a chat about seeing some stuff as other stuff. But it's totally fine. I'm enjoying the chat. But yeah, when I think about Aftercare, I'm thinking about, do you mind me making a sexual thing? I'm not going to get into, hopefully, too much detail. And
I'm now intrigued. Go ahead.
So in the kink community, and also in the LARP community, actually, there is this whole concept of aftercare, like after a scene, because there's this thing called role playing where someone's maybe submissive or someone's even being masochistic and someone else is being sadistic. But then at the end of that, there's hey, now we're kind of stopping for a moment. Are you actually okay? Let's have a hug and let's check that you're actually okay. And to do that without that kind of moment of aftercare, it feels like I've been abandoned. And I could sort of see that in a Kickstarter. I mean, it's like in a LARP, similarly, you take on this other character and you might shout at someone because that's your character, because you're playing the angriest person in the room, even though your real nature is a tranquil person. And then at the end, you have to say, hey, well, you don't have to, but you might want to say, hey, I'm sorry about being such a bloody-minded tyrant, and I hope that, and everyone else is like, yeah, no, that made the story way better, that made it fun, and everyone's like, yeah, let's talk about how we're different to our real people, and let's kind of say anything that we want to say, just to make sure that we've got a bit of space to kind of debrief, if you know what I mean. And for me, that debrief is such a big part of it. And so Mike says, after an event, it's good to make sure people have enjoyed it, help you know what to keep doing or stay away from. So at my conventions, when I do a convention, at the end of every day, we've got I think it's 6 p.m. I think that's when UK Games Expo finishes on Friday and Saturday. At my stand, 6 p.m. If you're helping me out, then you can come back. It's totally optional, but we will have a quick, hey, what's something you enjoyed? What's something you enjoyed outside of the stand? And do you have any quick things that you didn't enjoy or any suggestions or tips for Bez? And that kind of gives everyone a space to talk. But a Kickstarter is at its best like an event. And so at its best, it should be like, hey, I've not forgotten you. I would like to keep in touch with you. And I mean, with some of the LDEC Kickstarters, it might be a case of, hey, maybe I should be jumping in once a year and saying, hey, you backed me back in 2017, thank you, or 2016, thank you very much for that. And if you've still got your LDECs, here's a brand new game that I'm very excited by. Please, it's a solo game and it's brilliant by Joe Kelly, and give it to go. And that feels nice. It's like added value. And I thought about like, or sometimes it's a case of, hey, here's a wrap up. We are going to part ways, but I will maybe be in touch very occasionally. But if you've got anything else that you want to say, here's where to get me in touch. And it's making yourself available is one part of it, I would say. That's one part of Aftercare. And the other part of Aftercare is doing potential follow-ups or new rules or new content, which I know in Voyages they had like new maps and stuff. And with To Be or Not to Be, that is the question. Like literally 2 years after it had already fulfilled, they said, hey, I am doing a new thing, but I just want to actually give you a totally exclusive backer-only freebie. And here's a thing that you can download digitally because you clearly enjoyed my Choose Your Adventure book, because otherwise you wouldn't have backed it. So here's a free digital download of something new. And that was like, wow, this is amazing. Like we weren't expecting this freebie. So are there other forms of aftercare, or is it basically limited to that? So I've mentioned giving people space to talk, and making yourself available so that they know where to contact you if they need to, and thirdly, potentially giving them more stuff. Is there other forms of aftercare, and would you agree that this is all a valuable form of aftercare?
So I think those are all valuable forms of aftercare. There's probably, there's probably something there about some of the practicalities. Supposing that they lose some of the pieces, they lose some cards, not immediately, but a year later, what do you do then? They lose some cards, can they buy just a few cards from you? The missing cards. Let's say, the baby has chewed on half the deck or something like that. Which it happens. It has happened. And it's that sort of thing. Can they buy something extra to replace that? Will you give them something extra? And it depends on what the object is, I suppose. So there's that kind of remaining available. Some of that is having stuff online. We're putting together sort of workshop things for schools and teaching plans and things. And I think that's and that's useful stuff to have online, and extra resources and things like that, although we haven't actually got any of them online, and we said that we'd do that by July. So they're still sort of that stuff has remained at 75% done for about 6 months, if not longer. So it kind of needs to actually have the last quarter of it done. So I think that's all valuable. The thing
sometimes it's worth sharing the incomplete thing, I find, especially if it's something you can share digitally. In the backer only update and say, hey, this is the thing. I mean, all those cards that I showed, I shared to everyone who backed my Kickstarter, but obviously I don't want that floating around the internet. I don't want people to make print and play files for free. So yeah, it's a backer only update. And that seems like a really nice, quick and easy way to say, hey, here's some files that you might get some value of. And then you can say, oh, but we are still working on them, but here they are in the interim.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I can completely say that. The thing I wanted to pick up from what you said before was about debriefing and debriefing after events. I think that's actually really crucial. Debriefing after a theatre production. It's less important if it's a scripted thing. Because everybody knows what's happening. Versus an improvisation. I can see that it would be actually really important to debrief after improvisations. Although I've never done anything which is that improv. I mean, I've done little bits, here and there, but not like a, not one which is improvisation with a significant audience. And some LARPs are, some LARPs are huge things. So,
but I mean, LARPs don't inherently have the audience, but it's like the audience is the people that you interact with, really. But I think the key thing is that there is improvisation with emotional significance for you, because I think that I can do comedy improv all day or improvise music all day with people and not feel like I have to debrief. But I could similarly do like a half-hour LARP which is about a very serious topic. And at the end, I feel like, okay, if we just split ways immediately, I would feel very emotionally vulnerable and, not good.
No, yeah. But even for other events, so I completely agree with that, Bez. You're completely there. Even for other events, then I think debriefing is something which people don't do enough of, and we should do more. One of the groups, one of the campaign groups that does debriefing really well, Citizens UK. So Citizens UK are a sort of community campaign group. They do a lot of lobbying for local councils. So you often have a Citizens UK group, which is often comprised of some of the educational establishments there. So high schools and universities, and quite often some of the churches get involved because you need to be quite institutional in order to participate. It's not an individual thing. It's a group thing. But they then go and they lobby the local council about something or other, and that they have brilliant debriefs. When I have seen them in action, they do big meetings, with councillors. Then afterwards, literally, they all pop round the corner and they have a debrief. And I'm like, that's brilliant, because hardly any other organisations do the debrief right then immediately and get into that amount of detail about it. And it's like, actually, doing it there when it's still fresh in your mind can be really good. So
there is a danger of getting into too much detail, for sure. There is a balance to be struck. But I think that as long as you aren't spending more time than you have, and I think another nice thing is to make sure that it's kind of opt-in, because similarly, aftercare shouldn't be something that's foisted upon people. It shouldn't be, oh, you need to explore all these new maps, or hey, you need to do this other thing, or hey, you need to now read this extra book. It should be like, hey, if you want it, here's a brand new free book. That's amazing. Or
absolutely.
It's not like you must get in touch. It's, hey, if you want to get in touch, these are the channels where I'll probably respond a little bit faster.
Yeah. See, the thing is, for Kickstarters, there are some people who will feel like they're practically part of the team. They've really been feeling, so they've really been following along. They've really been engaged. Perhaps they've been, perhaps they've given comments back on things. Perhaps they've given reviews on Board Game Geek. Perhaps they've been reviewing on their individual channels. So for Library Labyrinth, there were quite a lot of people who were not the big YouTube channels, but had some followers were like, yeah, I'll happily, talk about this. I'll happily review this, to my following. And it's like, that's great. We want it to be that sort of word of mouth thing, not just, the big people talking about this, or, the Washington Post or whatever. We want it to be all sorts of, smaller things. So they are part of a team in some way. They've been on this journey with us, and they want, to be part of the debrief. Whereas there are other people who are like, well, I'll see the email come in, but I don't want to read it. And that's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine for both types of backers, plus, for all the, types in between.
And it's really interesting because I did write it wasn't a survey, it was just an open question. Hey, how often do you feel like a Kickstarter should update folk? And like, I got multiple people saying during the campaign I'd like it to be every day, and after the campaign finishes, I'd like it to be maybe once a week. And other people who were saying, like, I had multiple people, like maybe 3 or 4 so people who said, you know what, I'm kind of on the extreme. I want to be told when I need to give you my shipping information, and then I want to know when they've all shipped, and that's basically all I want. I want basically 2 updates. But like, I think those people who do want to be parts of it, and I think the key thing here is to make sure that the title is clear what it's about, whether this is just nothing much has happened, boom, and I'm going to write a bit of fluff to expand on that. Or, hey, we need your addresses now! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, maybe a third exclamation mark, maybe even a fourth, maybe even a fifth. 5's a good number. I like 5. I mean, it does feel excessive, but maybe, yeah, that might be my new, style guide. 5 exclamation marks for stuff where people actually need to do actions, because otherwise, so many people just will maybe not see it or ignore it or whatever, and then they'll come back and they'll be like, oh, looking down the list of things, this one's in block capitals and it's got lots of exclamation marks. This is really important. And so you need to somehow appeal to both sets of people, but without wanting to exclude those who want less contact. I think I'm probably feeling like in future I'll probably, like, if I'm thinking, should I do an update or not, I'd probably always err on the side of, yeah, do an update, because there's going to be some number of people who are like, hey, you told us that you weren't well 2 months ago, and you told us that it's going to happen, but you've not contacted us for 2 months. What's going on? And, sometimes that can turn into rage or frustration or whatever. And just by having a small thing and saying, I say just, but it can sometimes be a big deal when you don't have any information to think, what am I going to write here? But I think that you need to cater for the people who want the most engagement, because those people are the ones who are going to be the ones who really support and really get something out of the game. And I feel like those are the people who, frankly, to me, that's a lot more what Kickstarter should be. So like, I'd rather push back towards that when I think about it now.
Yeah, when you've got different people who have different needs, it's always difficult to cater for everybody. But, I think perhaps, the people who, I mean, personally, I wouldn't be sending out emails every day. That feels like it's, too much.
Like, during the campaign, like if it's going
it
really
depends
quickly.
how long the campaign is. Say the campaign is a week, say the campaign is 7 days long, then I think I personally probably don't send out emails once a day. But I think for my last campaign, which was 9 days long, then I think I sent out 6 emails during
what
that.
kind of activity is going on. Like, for a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises, that really had a lot more folk than I was expecting. We were breaking through lots of stretch goals, and I was telling people, well, vote on what you want next. And I think at the very start of the campaign, it was like, wow, this is amazing. We funded already. Thank you very much. This is like a legitimate thing. Now, what would you like for the next stretch goal? And I think for the first 2 days, there were maybe like 3 or 4 emails sent. And then it was a 9-day campaign. And I'm going to guess, without looking, that there were maybe 11 emails sent over those 9 days. And hopefully, like, people didn't get annoyed by it. And it was like, just like, hey, this is amazing. What more stuff would you like? Would you like these stickers, or would you like these other stickers? Would you like bonus this or bonus that? Mike does say once a week. So are you talking about during the campaign, or are you talking post-campaign? Because if it's post-campaign, I would actually argue the opposite, that, maybe afterwards you kind of give people expectations. You say, this, just to remind you, in my instance, I say, I'm not going to ask you for your addresses until I physically have the games, or I'm physically just about to get the games. And whenever that happens, I will send another update. Until then, I will update you periodically. But thank you so much. This is amazing. And I'm going to now go and get some sleep. That's typically what I write just after the campaign has finished. And then it'll be I aim for once a month. I don't achieve that. I do it less often. But then I go to when it's actually being shipped and when stuff is happening. At this point, I feel like, you know what? I've just sent it to the printer. Okay, I'm about to get something. Like, even if I've sent an update 3 days ago, if I say, oh, wow, there's a date where it's actually now meant to come, and I need your addresses, I would still do that as another update, no matter how. Well, if it was literally the same day, I'd probably wait like 1-2 days. But like, but I do get your point about too much being spam. And hello, Dr. Flim Flam Esquire, who says ideally we could have different email lists with different frequencies, and folks can choose. I.e., Kickstarter is basic updates, lists are more frequent, but then I feel unsure about this just because if someone's coming to the campaign and then they're not getting their emails for whatever reason and they're like, oh, what's going on? Then they can read through hopefully a bunch of detailed lists. And I feel like all the detail should be on that Kickstarter updates. And Kickstarter doesn't really allow you to segment your audience, sadly.
Yeah, which is a bit frustrating. Now I'm thinking for Disarm the Base, then I had one email going out every month, but I said at the bottom of all those emails, there'll be a blog post, there'll be something on the website, with pictures, and it might just be a couple of words, and then, here are 3 pictures, but there'll be something about once a week. So those people who wanted to see something, could go and see some pictures of, how the development was going, which worked quite well because Disarm the Base was quite a short timescale. In fact, it was a ridiculously short timescale. I do not know how I did it because we kickstarted it in July and it was being shipped out in November.
Very nice.
That
4
was
months.
that was a really, really silly timetable. I should not have done it quite like that. But hey, it worked, so.
I mean, the advantage of a blog post, although I don't have a decent blog thing where people can, like, the closest I've got is maybe Board Game Geek, but then I don't want to be talking about my own projects every week there, and I try to make it more stuff that's either my really big announcements or general gaming stuff. But like, maybe for my next Kickstarter, what I would do is say, okay, here I will update you no more than once every so many weeks. But if you want stuff literally as it's happening, I will share all the photos on this channel of my Discord and go to stuffbybez.com/Discord, and that will redirect you. And yes, you need to sign up to a thing, but at least then you get it all as it's happening, because if I can get Discord onto my phone, it's just so much easier, because then I'm like, okay, I've drawn a bunch of stuff, click, 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 upload it. And I don't need to worry about, and thanks Black Sheep who says, Discord, Bez has a Discord here. So you can see that from the, and yes, but have we at this point talked about all the aftercare, or is there anything else you would like to follow up with or talk about regarding
we probably have. I think, there is something that you mentioned earlier about when you're sending messages, quite a long time post Kickstarter. So when it's a finished product and you're like, oh, okay, you liked this product, would you like to have another one? And and I definitely send, I probably send messages about once a year to the previous Kickstarters, just to say, hey, this is the stuff we've got going on.
But like, to me, that's not aftercare. To me, that's like promotion. If it's like, hey, would you like to support us here? But conversely, if it's an invitation, like, look, I'm not saying that promotion is bad or that marketing is bad. Obviously, without it, how do people know about your stuff? But I would like to focus again on the backer or customer-centric thing, because whilst yes, all the stuff that we've talked about, ultimately, we're hoping that people love our stuff. That in my case, I hope that people tell me, hey, Bez, I loved it, and make me a little bit happy because I'm like, hey, someone likes my thing. And then maybe afterwards, they rate it highly on Board Game Geek, and maybe more people buy it, and maybe I start making more money. I don't know. But that's kind of the hope. But it's about how can we be focused on the customers and make sure they have a good experience, and then it's going to just naturally turn into people saying, hey, you know what, I had a good experience and I'm going to, enjoy this. And
No, I can say that.
I feel like if I were to invite all my previous Kickstarter backers, I mean literally all my previous Kickstarter backers, to my leaving do, I'm going to say, this is not an event where I'm going to be generating income. This is going to be a lossy event. I don't know a better word for it, but it's going to be an event where I spend money and hopefully everyone will have a good time. It is semi-private. And of course, I'm not expecting people to necessarily fly internationally, but if you are in the UK, like a lot of my
be fun. Yeah.
then maybe you'll enjoy coming, especially if you've enjoyed my games enough to back them on Kickstarter. And that seems like a nice thing to do. Or, hey, if you already have the L deck, then I can give you some more rules for another game to play with it. That's something that I can do for like digital distribution, allows me to do it for zero incremental costs. Of course, there's the upfront costs of me making those files and doing the design work and the development and potentially new arts, I don't know. But once I've got those rules, hey, new game you can play with your deck. I hope you love it. And that feels like something that maybe I should and could do more of.
Yeah, no, I see that. Yeah, you're right. There is a distinct. There's something quite clear and distinct between the marketing and the here's something new. Though they do. Sometimes they can merge into one another, but I think we should try and keep them separate. So.
But we've been chatting for so long, and at this point, Jess, what's the question that you would like to ask us? Oh no, sorry, that's the wrong banner. Question of the day, question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way. Question of the day.
Ooh, this is a difficult one, I think. And I think it is about. So for me, this is quite a personal question. When you are physically at an event, how do you do good aftercare when you have some of your Kickstarter backers come up and be very enthusiastic at you? Because
Kickstarter backers who already have their games.
Yeah, who already have their games. Because I find Games Expo to be quite a long, difficult process. By the end of it, your legs are aching, your arms are aching, your tongue is completely swollen and is 3 times the size. So it's, how can you maintain the enthusiasm that Kickstarter backers have? Because I am looking forward to meeting so many of them, and we've got I think 32, 33 games where people have said that they'd like to pick up the game there at Expo. So I'm expecting to have a lot of conversations about it and be handing over the games. Plus, we want to sell a lot. But how do you maintain enthusiasm for something?
That's a really good question. And to everyone in the audience, if you were a Kickstarter backer and you came up and said, oh, I'm excited to get this thing, what would you hope for? What would you expect? But what would you ideally hope for? And Mike mentioned self-care is part of aftercare, which is true. And if you can't look out for yourself, how can you care for someone else? And so it is about definitely, where do you get your own enthusiasm from? I mean, for me, if I'm with other people, like, this chat is one of the highlights of my days, frankly, and I'm slightly concerned about, after episode 1,000, how I'm going to make sure that I have some joy in my life, and I really need, need is a strong word. I really would like someone to be like, "Hey, Bez, do this. Hey, good job."
Need is relative, though. Some people really do need things, and what you need when you're tired or stressed is often different from what you need at other times. When I'm tired and stressed, quite often I need other people to just go away. If I've got a really difficult task,
to be
I
around
need to do
me.
it by
I need
myself.
people to be checking in on me. I need people to occasionally say, "Hey, Bess, that was good. Well done." Or maybe just implicitly say that I did a good job because they're laughing, they're enjoying my games, whatever. I mean, my favorite. I was going to say double check to see if this is true, and I think this might be true. That I think my favorite memory of 2022 is at UK Games Expo when everyone else was basically doing their job of showing off the games, and it was after Friday. Like I was trusting everyone. I knew everyone was doing a good job or good enough to kind of keep going and me not worry about them. And then I can see people kind of I can float around and hear people's enthusiasm, and that makes me feel, wow, I did something really good. And I did have a lot of appointments with media people. So I said, oh yeah, book an appointment and come in for this time or that time. And I had a few folk who booked in, which was lovely. But also I liked the times when I was free and it was like, yeah, I'm just floating around and I will step in and do demos whenever, but also I'm expecting that there'll be some people. And what I do is I say, hey, it's lovely to meet you. I don't have time to do a full chat, but let's do a quick elbow dance. And then we do the right elbow, left elbow, right ankle, left ankle, jazz hands. And then if I do have time, I might be like, oh, would you like to see my latest thing? And because I've got quite quick games, that is a way where I feel I'm able to say, oh, thank you so much for enjoying Game X. Now, well, would you like me to do a demo of Game Y? Like last year, I did have a single printing of cards of I think Tony and Richard. I don't know if you saw that.
Yep.
So it was like
I did. I saw
UK Games
those.
Expo 2022 exclusive, and I'm not going to. Oh, I might. Oh, I am actually kind of tempted to have like a special fan only thing where it's like just I don't know, hundreds or so, some sort of special sticker or some sort of special card or some sort of like it could be like or maybe I could draw a new sticker and it just says thank you for being a fan and there's a picture of a little fan,
That would be
maybe,
cool. Little
and
fan.
then I just give it to people when they come over to see me.
Fan you wave or an electric fan?
Well, I was thinking about that just after I said it, and I've decided that the electric fan probably reads better visually because it's more okay. This is obvious what it is, but no, not thank you for being a van. Thank you for being a fan.
I'm going to be driving a van. This is going to be interesting.
I
I'm going to
mean,
be driving a van full of.
I might actually put up a thing to see if anyone can join me. But yeah, let's move on to. But yeah, to maintain my energy, I'm cognizant and clear about my time, if you know what I mean. I say to people, yeah, thank you so much. I don't have lots of time. Like, I know that sounds harsh, but I'm just upfront with that.
Yeah.
And people understand that occasionally someone pops over and then sadly they've got to wait for half an hour to see me. But that sounds like really like if I'm doing
it happens.
If I'm doing a recording with someone, then I don't want to be interrupted while I'm literally recording a video. Or sometimes I even take a break, believe it or not. I mean, I actually try to, when I take a break, I try to once a day get away for at least half an hour It does take a lot of effort and a lot of, oh my gosh, what's happening at my stand? But I try to get away for half an hour. Hopefully not too many fans, as there would be a I think that's a typo, as there would be a thank you fan queue. Oh, thank you. Okay, I get it.
That's good, but it's also bad.
And I get that that is meant to be a joke, but also in reality, I want to say that there was one time when I actually had a tiny queue, like it was literally 2 or 3 people, but it's still a queue. Like I told people,
a queue to see Bez. Hurrah!
Where I was like doing these. This was, I believe, in like really early on, like maybe 2016, something like that. And then it was in a bind, and I was drawing, like I was basically illustrating the blank card, because every copy of In a Bind had 1 or 2 blank cards in it, so I can't remember. And it's like, hey, what's your favorite animal? And I'll draw something, and it's like, whenever you draw a card, make this noise. And it's like a funny little thing. And it's like, one of them was, whenever you draw a card, flutter your eyelashes like a unicorn, because the person said unicorn. And then it, like, I signed the thing, and that's my method of signing it in a very much more meaningful way. It takes me about 2 minutes, maybe, and the truth is that you kicking, you know what? If someone came over with an In a Bind blank card because they love In a Bind, I'd be A, impressed that they'd kept it so long, and B, probably I don't have that many people that I couldn't do it for you. If you come along, then I'll try and fit you in. But that's, for me, the most amazing part is saying, thank you for thanking me. That's an amazing compliment. It really means so much to hear that people are loving my things and you're coming over, because that really makes it all meaningful to me. And I think being able to compliment a compliment in that way, to paraphrase one of my own games, but that it really is good, genuinely, because that's what people are doing when they say, I'm excited to play this. They are complimenting you. And so it's about complimenting the compliments. And hello, Alex. You're a lovely person as well. I hope you're generally well. But at this point, I do want to say over to you. What are you up to? You can share, Botsy, if you want to. Yes, I am going to book Las Iguanas. I've circled it now 3, 4, 5, 6 times, so it's very visible. And I'm going to do that at 12 o'clock, because I tried to book with my credit card yesterday, but their systems seems to be problematic. So I'm going to give them a ring after they open, see if I can get the booking for the 12 of us on the Sunday. I might also book something for Wednesday. I was trying to remember. I do really need to sort out logistics. That's stressing me out. But I think that's all I can do at this point is make a post, send a message to one more person, and then I'll hold tight, and I will crack on with finishing my illustrations. Be like, to heck with this. If it's not good enough, I'm just going to do it anyway, and hopefully there's still time to get it printed for UK Games Expo. There should be, because I've been told that 2 weeks is enough time. And I will possibly, if I've got energy left, look into what banners I might have. I am going to have a chat with Kirsten Lunda tonight about Questable, which I'm excited for. And I am going to make sure to get out. You know what? After this, I'm going to stay out until at least 12 o'clock, at which point I'll phone Las Iguanas. Because, after Games Expo, we all deserve a nice meal together.
Absolutely.
What are you up to today?
I am. So there are still some parcels to send. Most of these, are actually parcels which have been sold recently, as their recent sales. Going to bug a few more people on the Kickstarter about their addresses. Some of them still haven't sent me postage, so I've just got there's basically a small selection of people I need to send a few more emails to, saying, excuse me, this is email number whatever, to just make sure that they send me the postage money. And the banners for the UK Games Expo stand. So those I have a personal thing I need to have done by Friday. That's my deadline for the banners. So yeah, it feels like there's actually quite a lot of little bits. Plus things like parking at Expo. I need to sort out parking when we're there. I need to sort out the access to the site. You know, we don't have the registration for the van yet because it's a hire van, so I need to find somebody who's got a car whose registration I can put in and they won't mind, and all of those sorts of things. So it'll be fine.
Well, it sounds like we've both got a lot going on, and hopefully, as you say, it'll all be fine. I'm also going to Herefordshire. Actually, I want to say that I am going to the Herefordshire gaming event on maybe. Realistically, it might be Friday morning I head over. It might be Thursday. I think I'm going to, check in with Adam and Elaine, and I think but I will be thinking about getting ready, by which I mean I will do some laundry today.
Hey,
I might even do some laundry before I head out. Yeah, I will do that. I will do some laundry. That's all my outer clothes, because basically I have two ways that I separate stuff. One load is all my stuff that isn't red, and also stuff that's particularly grimy, so like, underwear and anything that isn't red. And then I've got 3 loads. One load is for stuff that's red and white, because those stripe things, if you wash them with the red stuff, then it can go into red and pink. So you need to be careful with the red and white stripes. But then the third load is basically everything else, which is like dresses and skirts and tops, but like it's all red. So that's by far the bigger load. And then I did a load on Monday, I want to say, or Sunday, it feels like, but that was the kind of inner stuff, if you know what I mean, socks and pants.
Yeah, most of my laundry is out on the line, but there is still more laundry to be done. There's always more laundry to be done.
And Alex says, I recently heard your name, as in Jessica, on the Ludology podcast about the Greener Games Guide. Looking forward to seeing the fruits of your green labours. And Mike says, just 3 weeks until I am flying over for UK Games Expo. Yes, it is exactly 3 weeks. You're right. So at this point, recap and wrap up before we finish up. To recap and wrap up, we talked about Ticket to Ride Berlin, and we pondered what might be upcoming. We talked about a mega Ticket to Ride day and having lots of tables, maybe a mini convention. We talked about Matty Schrader and Hecking Hounds and how some people, we just disagree with their opinions. And you've done a great job. Sapphire City Games, and we just want to give support. We defined Aftercare as after the games are with you, what are we doing? And it's for your benefit. We talked about mazes, and we talked about dates, and we talked about personal time. Like, personally, time is not a factor necessarily for when games arrive. But professionally, other people do care, and you need to be mindful of that. And whether you send it or to a shop or try to have it at a convention, it depends on what you promised. It depends on whether there have been delays, and any of those things it depends on how you communicated all of this. It depends on how it's gone so far. And sometimes, if you are in two minds, sometimes it's just a case of, hey, everyone, what do you think? Are you okay with me selling it at UK Games Expo, given that this is by far the biggest event of the year for me? We talked about how Aftercare results in happier customers. It results in people reusing stuff, which is great for the environment. It encourages people to keep looking at games and, maybe turn into hobbyist gamers, but it also forms a deeper connection. As a marketing thing, obviously, it forms a deeper connection, maybe with your game, which is nice, and it shows that you're able to keep up with your responsibilities. Obviously, folk want different things, and you need to be mindful of that, and you need to work out how to cater for that, especially when you can't segment your audience. But maybe it is a case of saying, hey, I'm going to update here, but if you want this stuff as it happens, go to my Discord, or go to this mailing list, or go to this blog site, whatever, or Facebook group, but you have a thing. Sometimes it's about follow-ups. Like sometimes it's about new rules for that thing. Sometimes it's about sending new stuff to them for free. Normally that will be digitally, of course. Sometimes it's about giving them a space to talk and be listened to. And I think that's what lots of people really want, that they say something and then they feel like they have been listened to. Sometimes it's about giving your own contact details and saying, hey, if you want to get in touch with me, these are my contact details. Sometimes it's about, way down the line, replacement bits. Because when something gets broken or something gets damaged or someone's unhappy with someone, how do you take care of them? And there was so much more that we could have gotten into. But then we talked about debriefing, about Citizens UK, about needing to go to Las Iguanas, which is, of course, its own kind of debrief. I mean, on our way there, we stand in a circle. Maybe I should book it for 6:30. I guess it depends what the halls are like. No, I think 6, yeah. So technically we need to be out of the NEC by 6, and I was going to book for 6:15, but maybe 6:30 is a better time, because then that gives us half an hour to stand in a circle and, like, even if it's at Resorts World, and do a debrief. But on the other hand, people will be hungry.
Will you have things that you have to physically drop off? You know, will you have boxes that you have to get back to somewhere?
Like,
or
it will be in the car, so the car will be
that's
just
fine.
parked off. But we also talked about chasing up folk. But at this point, to everyone who's been watching, I want to say thank you for the stuff. Never-Ending Laundry is the sequel to Never-Ending Story, the most boring one for grown-ups, says Alex.
It is. It's very boring, and it's very real, and it's too much laundry.
Share, spread the word. Thank you very much for being here. If you feel like this has been of value, then share, spread the word. Also share, spread the word about my mega 1000th party. It's not going to be my longest stream by quite a big margin. It's only going to be about... Actually, I'm going to double check the times. And my final guest is at 4:30. So it will be about 7.5 hours. Because I've told Elizabeth that she's going to be on for about an hour. And, you know, we might have a bit of a wind down at the end, but then we'll also get a chance to do a debrief, which will be nice.
Yay.
And then, share, spread the word about that or whatever. But thank you very much, everyone. Thank you especially to Jess for being here. And if you want to check me out, I am Stuff by Bez in all of the places. You can join my Discord or whatever. And you can check out what's going on my streams there. And Jess, where do you like to be found?
Go to Descent Games. So generally I hang out on Twitter, despite the fact that it is still kind of imploding, just slowly, but I'm Descent Games there. You can go to Facebook, where we're also Descent Games, although there's a Library Labyrinth page there. Oh, thank you. But you can also go to librarylabyrinth.com, which is where you will find things like how to buy Library Labyrinth. So come find me on the internet.
And at this point, is that the last thing that I normally say? Yes, I think it is. We are all out of stuff to say, and the only thing left to say is, as always, lots of love and bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Blue, blue, bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, bye, everyone. Lots of love.